houseplant hobbyist, an outdoor enthusiast, and a conservation scientist based in Vancouver, which is the ancestral territories of the Musqueam. And welcome back to my channel. It's been a really long time since I filmed a video, I think about 3 years, and a lot has changed over the past 3 years. I graduated university, I traveled a lot, which I'm very grateful for, and I feel very lucky to be able to do something like that. I also started working in Pacific salmon conservation, which was a dream of mine ever since I was younger. So a lot of things has changed, but my love for plants hasn't changed a single bit. So I'm back here today, starting up my channel once again. I'm going to do a shorter video today because I just want to ease into filming and being in front of a camera once again. But I have 5 of my favorite plants that I have in the moment here in front of me. I'm going to show you. A lot of these plants I have recently acquired, so I'm not too sure if you've seen these plants before, but it is now winter here in Vancouver. It's snowing quite a bit. My room is a north-facing bedroom, and I don't get much light, so I have a lot of grow lights in my room. I tend to get pretty cold because my room is on the ground level of my house, so I have a heater running right now 24/7 in my room just to ensure my plants don't freeze to death. But I do see some growth popping out here and there, so it's nice to see that these plants are persevering through the great Canadian winter. But yeah, let's get started and I'll show you my top 5 favorite plants in no particular order. This includes plants that I find a joy to grow, plants that I feel a connection to, and plants that are a little bit more sentimental to me. So I guess we'll start off by showing you this one plant right over here. This is an African violet. I've always been fond of African violets and variegated plants in general, like most plant enthusiasts. The one thing I love about this African violet is not only its variegation, but its flowers are stunning. I think this African violet is called the African violet Rob's Outer Orbit. And I got this as a gift. I also got this pot as a gift. I got it as a stocking stuffer last Christmas, and it's really beautiful. This African violet was purchased at the African Violet Show here in Vancouver. I just really like the growth pattern of this African violet itself. Very easy to grow. I just grow it under a grow light. The variegation is pretty stable, which is really cool. I got this to bloom about once or twice already, so I feel very lucky to be able to enjoy its blooms. It usually blooms when it starts to get warm here in Vancouver, so I might see it bloom in the next couple of months as the weather starts to become a little bit more warm. It looks a little funky right now because it's missing some leaves around this corner over here, and it's planted very low into the pot itself, but I actually had to save this plant from rot. It was in a self-watering pot, and I noticed that its stem started to get a little mushy, so I just chopped it, put it in water for about a month or so, and once I noticed that it had secondary roots, I was able to pot it into a nice aroid mixture, which it's currently in right now, and it seems to be enjoying it. So I'm really happy about this African violet. I look forward to purchasing more African violets, even though I don't really have any more space for any plants in general. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this plant. This is the African violet Rob's Outer Orbit. The second plant I want to talk about is this Phalaenopsis orchid right in front of me over here. This is a very special Phalaenopsis orchid to me. Growing up, I always found a connection to orchids because my grandpa, who was a forester back in my ancestral country, Philippines, he worked with a bunch of orchids. So when he came to live with us here for a year, when I was very young, I don't think I was even in elementary school yet, he told me a bunch about his work and stuck with me for a very long time, and I pursued a career in forestry as well. But yeah, back to this orchid. I really love this orchid not only because of its beautiful blooms, as you can see right here. It has that magenta interior with the white speckled exterior, and there's a couple more buds that are about to bloom as well. So not only do I really enjoy these blooms, but if you look really closely again, you can see the variegation on the leaves right over here. So I actually purchased this orchid from my local drug mart, so places where you're able to purchase medicine, but they also have snacks and foods. So it's kind of like a CVS if you're from America, or kind of like Long's if you're from Hawaii. So these orchids usually get put on sale during Valentine's Day. And I purchased this last Valentine's Day, and I noticed that first it had these variegated leaves. So that's what really drew me into the orchid itself. It's not super tricky for me to get these orchids to rebloom anymore, but it took a really long time for me to crack the code, and they do need that drop in temperature that Phalaenopsis orchids need to be able to induce blooming. I'm not too sure what this orchid specimen is called, but I know there's a very similar orchid species called the Phalaenopsis sogovivian, and it has very similar flowers, but I think it has that tiger striped flower pattern that you probably have seen before. And it also has those variegated leaves that you can see on mine right here. But yeah, this one I just got at my local drugstore, and it cost under $15, which is really, really cool. And I think I've always wanted one of these, so I felt very lucky to be able to find one and purchase it for a pretty decent price. It's currently potted in sphagnum moss right now. I didn't repot it yet, so it's in that really dense sphagnum moss medium that they use when they're grown in a greenhouse. It seems like it hasn't been causing it any problems, but it does seem pretty compact. So I do want to repot it as soon as these blooms fall off the flower itself. I don't want to stress it out and repot it right now. I don't want to disturb these blooms because I really want to enjoy them for as long as I can. So yeah, this is one of my other favorites currently, the Phalaenopsis no ID that I found at my local medicine or drugstore. So yeah, there it is. The next plant that I'm really enjoying currently at the moment is this Monstera adansonii. I think it's called a Monstera adansonii. I think I purchased it as like a Indonesian mint. So I'm pretty sure that this Monstera variegation is man-made, so it's not naturally occurring. I got this as a tiny, tiny, tiny seedling. It had 3 tiny leaves, smaller than the ones that you see in the lower part of this plant right here. I purchased it for like $5, I believe, and it's grown slowly but surely. I left it in sphagnum moss for a very long time, so it grew pretty slow. But in the last 2 months or so, I repotted it into this soil mixture, and it's putting out bigger variegated leaves, and now there's some holes, which are really, really cool. There's also a new leaf coming out. I don't know if you can see, and it's focusing. But yeah, I feel very happy about the growth on this Monstera in general. The reason why I really like it is actually because I grew it from a very small cutting. I always wanted a variegated Monstera adansonii, but the Albo Monstera adansonii was really expensive, and I noticed that it reverts on a lot of people. It reverts to all white, which doesn't really do too well for the plant because it's unable to photosynthesize. So being able to find a pretty stable variegated Monstera adansonii, such as this Indonesian marble or Indonesian mint, I was pretty happy to have it in my collection. I do want to put it on a moss pole soon, just because I want their leaves to start to grow a little bit bigger. I just don't really have space for a lot of my plants that I want to grow really big, so this is kind of like a medium priority for me to get their leaves really big, but right now I really enjoy the size. It fits in my IKEA cabinet, which is behind me, so I'm able to just put it up front and center, and I can be able to walk past it every morning when I wake up and take a closer look at it. But yeah, this is my Monstera Indonesian mint, and it's such a joy to grow. It's a pretty fast grower once it gets established. It's just an easy plant in general, and a joy to grow in my cabinet, so I look forward to this growing a lot for me in the next couple of months or so. The next plant I have on my favorites list is this Monstera albo. This is actually one of my newer additions to my collection. I got this from my local plant group community on Facebook, and I got it for about 20 bucks, which is crazy to think how low the price has gotten for these Monstera albos itself. I really loved its speckled and mottled variegation. And I actually have 2 other Monstera albos, which I'll probably be doing a video update on because I did save it from rot, which was one of my first videos from a long time ago. But yeah, this is one of my newer additions to my collection. It's basically a bottom cut, so it doesn't really have like an active growth at the top of the plant in general. But I don't know if you can see, there's some new growth points right over here. And there's another new growth point. Ooh, I don't know if I can show you guys this one. It's right underneath this really big root that's right over here. So it's actively growing for me right now, which is really, really cool. I know I have more than one specimen of Monstera albo, but again, I really fell in love with the variegation of this Monstera albo in general because it does have that speckling. It has a lot of these mint leaves, so I'm really hoping that it passes on those genetics for me in the next batch of growth. What really matters is its stem, and its stem is very speckled and variegated, but it has that really good mix between green and white variegation, so I'm pretty sure that the next leaves that it's going to put out is going to be a little bit more balanced in variegation, not too white, not too green, so it's going to be able to photosynthesize and grow lovely for me. And again, another thing about this Monstera albo, and same thing with this Monstera adansonii mint, very easy growers, joy to grow. They just need water every now and then. They'll kind of tell me when they want water. Their leaves will not only curl, but you can kind of see that their leaves get a little limp. So that's when I know it does need a water. It also tells me when it doesn't want water because I can kind of see some saturation in the leaf. I can see the water within the leaf itself. So I know that it probably needs to dry out a little bit more before I water it once again. So yeah, not really much to say about this Monstera albo. I'm sure it's a favorite for a lot of people. So if you have purchased a Monstera albo and waited a really, really long time and waited for these prices to drop, congrats to you. I couldn't wait when the plant community and plant hobby was booming. So it's crazy to think that I spent almost 6 times more for a very small plant. And I have this one right now, which I feel very lucky to grow. I also forgot to mention the potting medium that this Monstera albo is in right now. The previous owner had it in Lechuza Pon, and I'm not really too familiar with Lechuza Pon, but I think that you need to put them in a self-watering pot. I don't think this pot is self-watering, it just has a reservoir just like this, and it also needs a repot as soon as possible. You can kind of see all the roots that are coming out of the pot right now. But again, I want to wait a little bit before I repot this plant, not only because it's not prime growing conditions in my city right now, but it's producing those 2 growths that I showed you earlier, and I want to make sure that those grow in before I stress it out and cause the new leaves to come in really wonky, or they might even abort the little growths if I play with it a little too much. So it's going to be in Lechuza Pond for the next couple of months, and when it starts to get super warm here in Vancouver, I will start to repot a bunch of my plants, and this will be one of them as well. This right here is a Philodendron Red Anderson, and the reason why I love it so much is because of its contrast between the really light pink leaves and this really, really dark, almost brown moss green, a little darker than moss green, I'd say, leaves. That contrast is beautiful. Again, philodendrons of this form are really easy to grow. This plant is currently growing in my regular room temperature and humidity, and it's doing really, really well. This is also one of my newer plants in my collection. I purchased it on Facebook Marketplace. I noticed that it had this beautiful variegation, which you can see right here. But as you can see, the variegation is stunning. And I noticed that this leaf, as much as I love it, it has a little bit too much pink. So I'm hoping it doesn't trend like this and gives me a balance of both beautiful pink leaves and some nice deep dark green leaves like this. I notice it is putting out a new leaf right over there, and it is a little darker, so I'm pretty hopeful that it's going to give me a balanced leaf the next time around. But the reason why I love this plant so much, again, is because I waited a really long time to be able to purchase this plant. It was 10 times the price a couple years back, and I feel very lucky that the prices went down and I was able to snatch a really beautiful specimen just like this. It is currently potted in an aroid mix. The roots are taking off, which is so nice to see. So I'm hoping to plant it in a bigger pot when summer comes around, or when spring comes around, sorry, so that it can continue to grow for me and size up its leaves. I do want to put it on a moss pole as well in the near future, again, so that it can size up its leaves and so that its aerial roots has a place to grow. I also have this little dolphin that is basically the same color as this plant, and I put it just right next to it, kind of like a plant pal. If you look really closely. Just thought I'd show you. Okay, so that brings me to the end of the video. Thank you so much for joining me here today on my channel. Again, I'm very grateful for anyone who has stuck around over my 3-year break period where I was just figuring life out. Life moves pretty fast and you don't realize all these changes that are happening around you, but I feel very grateful to be able to pause for a bit, look at my plants, and share them with you as well. If you enjoyed this video, I have a couple uploads from a couple years back, so feel free to check those videos out. If you want to see more videos, please let me know in the comments down below what you want to see, whether it be a houseplant tour around my room, whether it be fish tank stuff. I'm an aquarium hobbyist as well, so if you do want to see some of my fish tanks, I'd be really interested in showing you those little aquatic worlds that I've built. I'm pretty proud of them, so I feel very lucky to have those as well. I've also been doing a lot of camping during the summer and spring season here in Vancouver and in British Columbia in general, so if you're interested in seeing those videos, please let me know down in the comments below. If you have any questions, just write a comment down below as well, or if you just want to say hi and start a conversation. I always check the comments of all of my videos, even when I was not putting out any new videos, I was still looking at the comments, so please feel free to say hi. If you enjoy this video again, you can give me a thumbs up. You can also click that subscribe button down below and turn on the post notifications so you know when I put out a new video. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care always. Bye.